Hey guys, this is Mr. Schoenberg. This is lesson 8.4, point slope form. So really important. When you're on 8.4, use this equation. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So lesson 8.3 was all about, do you remember what it was? Slope intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. But when you're on 8.4, know that point slope form, this is going to be the easiest way to solve the equations. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, parallel lines have the exact same slope. If I was going to ask you about parallel lines, maybe you think of railroad tracks, but they're lines that are equidistant apart forever and always. Okay, there are two lines that go in the same direction and they're parallel. They're always the same distance apart. They will never intersect. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slope. We'll break that down in a minute. But this is a perpendicular line. Like here's one and here's the other. They intersect at right angles. Okay. So if two lines have the same, if two lines are parallel, if this slope of this line is 1/2, then the slope of this line is 1/2. Okay, that's parallel slope. So in this case, if I have y equals 2x plus 10, and y equals negative 2x plus 10, and y equals 2x plus 5, which ones are parallel? It would be number 1 and number 3 because of the two. Same slope, right? Okay, let's review what negative reciprocal is. If I have 4/5, what is the, first of all, the reciprocal of that? The reciprocal is 5/4. And the negative reciprocal is negative 5/4, okay? So if one line has slope of 4/5, this line has slope of 4/5, then this line has slope of negative 5/4. Okay, really important to realize when you're doing this lesson. This lesson's hard. I mean, they throw a parallel line at you, then they say perpendicular, and if you don't have all this straight, you might stumble a little bit, but you have this lesson and I'm going to try to teach you everything you need to know. So here's the step process. Finding the equation of a line given 2 points. Sometimes you're going to need to find the slope first. Then after you find the slope, m, you're going to plug it into this point slope formula. Okay, so here's one of the examples you could come across. It could simply say, find the equation of a line containing these 2 points. Well, step 1, let's find the slope. And if you still need to label these, that's fine. I like to label mine. So it's y2 minus y1. So it's negative 3 minus negative 1 over 3 minus 2. This happens to be negative 3 plus a positive 1. That is going to be negative 2 over 1. That's my slope. So I am going to use negative 2 over 1. Okay. Now, step 2. Okay, this was step 1. Step 2, I'm going to use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, just like that. And the variables I'm going to substitute in is a y1, the m, which I just found, and the x1. Okay, so I'm starring those. Now, we know where the m comes from. Where does the x and y come from? It can come from either one of these sets of ordered pairs. So I am going to use these for my x1, y1. I'm going to substitute them in for the x1, y1. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Y minus, and instead of y1, I'm going to say negative 1, is equal to m, which is negative 2, times x minus, and this was 2. Okay. Next step, I'm going to distribute this 2. Okay, so this y minus a negative is the same as y plus. Then I have minus 2x plus 4. Okay. Now I'm going to get y on a side by itself. So I'm subtracting 1 from both sides, and I have y is equal to negative 2x plus 3. And that is actually the answer. That is the equation of the line that contains these 2 points. So again, what did I do first? Step 1, I used the 2 points given and I found the slope. Step 2, I used point slope form. I substituted in the slope and I chose this first set of x1, y1. And I substituted there. I kept the other y and the x. Then I solved or simplified and I got y on a side by itself. So now I have the equation of the line, y equals negative 2x plus 3. Notice that this final answer is in slope-intercept form. It is. But we used the point slope form up here to get to that point. Okay, here's another scenario that you might see. Graph the line, they give you the slope, and then they say it passes through this point, okay? So here's how we're gonna do this one. And it's just simply a graph, if you notice. Well, here's what we know. We know that the slope is negative, okay? So it's gonna be a line like this, and it passes through the point 2,5. So we're gonna plot this point, and then using our slope, rise over run, we'll go from there. Okay, so we have a point 2,5, and we have slope of negative 3 over 4. So let's plot 2,5 over 2, up 5. And then from there, we can go, it's negative 3, 4. So we could go down 3 over 4. And there we have it. And then Hawks would draw that line for us. Okay. So if it just says simply graph, graph the point first, and then from the point, do your rise over run. Okay. All right. Example 3. Find a linear equation. So we have to find the equation this time. It passes through this point, and when we're given the slope m equals 2. So let's do this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay. We are going to replace y1, we're going to replace m. Okay, and this is our x1, this is our y1. Okay, let's do our substitutions. Y minus negative 1 is equal to m, which is 2, x minus 4. So this becomes y plus 1 equals 2x minus 8, you know, if I distribute there. And then subtracting 1 from both sides, I think I will have my answer. Y equals 2x minus 8 minus 1 is minus 9. Okay? So that was be the linear equation. Some of these, they're going to have you graph. Some of them you don't. Please read the instructions carefully. Find the linear equation that contains 2 points, 6, negative 2, and 2, 0. Okay, so I want to ask you, what is step 1? Step 1, find the slope. So here's what we have on the top, 0 minus negative 2, those are the y's, and then on the bottom, 2 minus 6. 0 plus 2, that's 2 over negative 4. It all comes down to m is equal to negative half after you simplify this equation, because you have 2 over negative 4, which simplifies down to negative 1/2. Okay, then we need to decide which x1, y1 are we going to use. And I say this one. I see that 0 there. 0 sometimes makes things a lot easier. So here I have y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So y minus y1 is 0. And the slope of this thing was negative 1/2. And then x minus 2. X minus 2. So now we have y is equal to negative 1/2 x. And then when I distribute this over here, I have to take negative 1/2. This is a negative and a negative, so it's positive. And 1/2 times 2 over 1. Okay, final answer is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 1. Okay, because when I took the 1/2 times 2, we got 1 there. So that is the equation of the line. Again, step 1, find the slope. Use the m, choose whichever values you want for x1, y1, plug it all into point slope form, get y on a side by itself, you have your answer. Okay, now for the probably most challenging part here. This is where we're going to start talking about our parallel lines, which have the exact same slope. And then we'll actually graph those, so I'll prove it to you. And same with this perpendicular one. Find the equation of the line through the point 3, 2 and parallel to this line. Okay, well here's the thing. I cannot see what the slope is yet. I'm going to get y on a side by itself so I can actually see what the slope is. So step 1 here, get y by itself. So 5x plus 3y equals 1. So I'm going to go minus 5x, minus 5x. So now I have 3y equals negative 5x plus 1. Divide every single term by 3. And I have y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1/3. Okay, so the slope here is negative 5/3. And that is the same slope. My other line I need to find is going to have the slope. I did all that to figure out the slope was negative 5/3. Now I'm going to use this point, x1, y1, the 3 and the 2. And here's where I'm going to substitute into y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so y minus y1 up here is 2, negative 5/3, x minus 3. And then let me distribute this fraction. This one's kind of a gnarly one. Y minus 2 equals negative 5/3 x plus 5/3 times 3 over 1. Okay. So next time through, that's going to cancel, and I'm going to have y minus 2 equals negative 5/3 x plus 5. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And finally, this line I have y equals negative 5/3 x plus 5 plus 2 is plus 7. So we're going to graph this original line they gave us, this one, and we're going to graph this one. And I'm going to show you that those two are parallel. Okay, so the first one is y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1/3. Y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1/3. And this other one is y equals negative 5/3 x plus 7. Okay, so for this line right here, y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1/3. This is kind of challenging to graph, but the y-intercept is positive 1/3. So on my y-axis here, if I go up about 1/3, that's where the y-intercept is, positive 1/3. Then if I go down 5 and over 3, again, this is kind of challenging, but if I go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 3, I'm about right here. I'm about right here. So here's my first line, sorry. Not a very straight line. Okay, then my second line, I have a positive 7 for the y-intercept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, my slope is down 5 over 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. I have 2 points. Now you can't tell that these lines are parallel. Maybe you can, but they have the exact same slope, negative 5/3. And both decreasing lines, negative slope, going down the mountain, but they are parallel. Okay, now for the last problem. Similar, but this time we're going to go through the point 3, 2, and we're going to be perpendicular to this line. Well, it's the same one. We've already gotten y on a side by itself before. So y equals negative 5/3 x plus 1/3. Remember when we did that right here? Okay, so now when we set our slope before was negative 5/3, what is the I call it the perpendicular slope, negative reciprocal. We need to flip it and then change the sign. I hope you were thinking 3/5. How did I get the negative reciprocal? I flipped this fraction, so it's 3/5, and I changed the sign from a negative to a positive. So this is the slope I'm going to use for this line. Okay, and then here's my x1, here's my y1, and here's my m value. Okay, so y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. y minus 2 equals 3/5 times x minus 3. Y minus 2 equals 3/5 x minus 3/5 times, when I multiply this out here, it's 3/5 times 3. Y minus 2 equals 3/5 x minus 9/5, adding 2 to both sides. Not making this one easy on us. Y equals 3/5 x minus 9/5. Now look what I'm going to do here. If I want to add this 2 to this, remember how we need to get a common denominator? So I need to multiply top and bottom times 5, and that becomes 10/5. 10 over 5 is 2. Okay. Finally, last step, y equals 3/5 x minus 9/5 plus 10/5 is simply plus 1/5. Okay, so here's my line that is perpendicular to this line, and we're going to graph it so I can show it to you. Okay, and actually let's graph it on this same graph, because we just grab a different color here. The perpendicular line is going to be, let's see, y equals 3/5 x plus 1/5. Okay, this was the original line right here. Now, if I graph this one, this is the y-intercept, 0, 1/5. It's getting more challenging all the time, 0, 1/5. And the slope is up 3 over 5. So up 3 over 5. About right there. So I have my 2 points. Now notice that this one truly is perpendicular to these 2 lines. Okay. All right, so that is this last lesson, 8.4. This is the last graphing lesson. Yes, it's challenging. When you get to 8.4, remember to use point slope. Sometimes you have to find the slope first and then plug it in picking the point. Sometimes they give you the point numbers to use, and they give you the slope. Some of these, then they'll throw up, hey, here's this one. Here's one line, find the line parallel to it. Or here's a line, find the line perpendicular to it. So again, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have the negative reciprocal slope. Hope that helps. Good luck. Last graphing lesson.